And then the idea of entrepreneurship, building a community, building wealth, building community-based wealth
Yeah.
so
Right.
that our stories wouldn't be lost. And so, from there, I'm sort of transported into my next sort of question or thought as it relates to what you've shared so far is when we think about what's happening now in Canada and the US and globally, and that we're living through this sort of generational social, cultural, economic challenges.
Oh.
If you were to imagine or reimagine spaces where folks like myself, folks who are listening across the sort of the globe to this particular podcast, who are from historically marginalized communities, as we navigate, live, love, and thrive, what parts of house music would you weave together to create those spaces at this time?
Mm. Mm. Wow. Well, um, so I feel like, many of us danced Saturday nights into Sunday morning. Some of us got up to church, some of us considered that night our church. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah,
I would say like this model of the club as a sanctuary. Um, maybe you want to keep that present and in the forefront, that it's not all about having a good time. For some people, this is the first opportunity that they get in a week after working hard, after feeling disrespected, after going through whatever it is they have to go through to get to the club that night, that this is the place where they come to let it all go, right?
mhm,
And so that it, like, again, you give up the ghost, right? Like, you can dance yourself out of your constrictions, like Parliament said, like
yeah,
you can elevate yourself, you can lose yourself, find yourself again. And all of that is happening, right? On an individual level. But you're there the DJ, I mean, is at least to take care of all of those folks that come through the door seeking that whatever it is, retribution, restitution, reconciliation, all of those things. And so relax, relate, release, as Whitley would say, you've got to give them that space to do that. And so a lot of it is, just remembering your audience and giving them that sanctuary, making it a sacred space. It requires, I think, some storytelling. You need,
yes,
yes, the
yeah,
power of the word. Okay. Like, and even for, audiences where it's like, maybe it's techno and they just want beats, pounding beats or whatever. I think, even like, I'm trying not to think about European techno, think about high tech soul like Detroit, right? Like,
yeah,
they still gonna have some words in there, right? So you got to tell some stories. You gotta, even if you're on the pulpit, you gotta find a way to weave in something relatable, word, sound, power, right? So
yes,
give me something to cling on to. And so that you don't feel like you're so othered, you don't feel like you're just in the margins, that really, it's all there for you. So creating these environments that, where you're leading with trust because you prioritize safety, you prioritized celebration, not just commodification. Um, and I just think about those days. It used to be a black room with a red light. It doesn't have to be all this LED stuff, like, let's take it back to the basics and let people get lost in the music and let people dance to their sweaty mess. And
yes,
and everybody in the room is there, not just a few people who are brave enough to do it, but setting up a environment where everybody feels cool enough to do that, like they trust enough to do that. They're not being looked at. They're not being stared at. It's not going to end up on social media somewhere. So that piece of safety, you
Yeah.
know, you know, this is about being able to get real physical with it, make them ugly faces, sweat your perm out, and and you have to be willing to do that. Um, you know,
I remember I used to have braids and I would always come home a braid short when I got into that music.